Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Heat Press Nation 2-in-1 sublimation tumbler and mug press. So if you'd like to see it, keep watching. Alrighty, so this is what the press looks like. So when you get this press, you're going to get the skinny tumbler attachment, and then you're also going to get this attachment to do mugs. So this smaller attachment will do 11 to 15 ounce mugs, and then the tumbler attachment can do 11 ounce, 15 ounce, and 30 ounce skinny tumblers. So what I was most excited about this press was just being able to do tumblers in it, the full wrap tumblers. I'm so used to having to use the convection oven, and to be honest, it is so much prep with the cups, so much prep, and it just seems like a lot of the time the tumblers don't really turn out that great. Like, you have to redo them sometimes. So I was really excited to try this out, honestly, just because the prep takes so much time, and I've always heard that it's way less prep and so much easier with the press. So that was what I was most excited about. So with this press, the temperature range is from 0 degrees all the way up to 415 degrees. The time range is 0 to 999. And we're gonna go ahead and make 3 tumblers today. So the supplies that you're going to need is the tumbler press, and make sure that you have the tumbler attachment in there. And then you're going to need sublimation tumblers. This is very important, making sure that you do have the correct tumblers. You don't want to paint a tumbler white. You don't want to do any of those things, or a lot of the time I've heard people get stuff on Amazon and they're really just not necessarily made for sublimation, and people just have issues. So you just want to make sure that you are getting tumblers that are made for sublimation. Places that you can get those are 143 Vinyl, and you can also get them on Heat Press Nation's website. The next thing that you're going to need is to have heat transfer tape. You can get this on Amazon. It's fairly cheap. And then you want to make sure that you have your images printed out. I figured today it would be appropriate to do a Golden Girls theme, so I printed out these 3 images. I will show you. So we chose this one. This one, I got these off of Etsy. And this one. So these tumblers are 20 ounce tumblers, and the sizing measurements that I do for these is 9 by 3 by 8.2 when you print them out. And then you just cut around the edges, and you want to make sure that the design doesn't really overlap in any areas, because if it does overlap, the ink is just going to kind of, I don't know, overlap and bleed and not look that great. So try to get it as perfect as you can. I find that doing it in this press, we don't have to do as much prep. You don't have to make sure everything is as tight and perfect, because the press is going to press it on there, and you're not going to have to use the shrink wrap or the tape, shrink wrap or the painter's tape to make sure it's like squeezing really tight. So we're going to go ahead and get these images taped onto the cup, and we're going to go ahead and heat up our press as well. So after we've made sure that we have the attachment, the tumbler attachment hooked in here, we're going to turn it on. And one of the features that I love about this press is how fast it heats up. My regular heat press that I use for shirts takes forever to heat up. So this one's really cool because it heats up so quick. So I have mine set at 355 degrees, and then I have the timer over here at 70 seconds, because when I put it in, I'm going to press it for 70, and then I'm going to do like a full 360 flip and do another 70 seconds. That is the only downfall that I have found to this tumbler press, is it doesn't wrap the cup all the way around. So there is, and I'll show you once I go to press a cup, but there is kind of an opening right here, so you're not getting the pressure right here, which is no big deal to have to flip the cup over and just press it a little bit longer. But I do wish that it was fully covering the cup, so we don't have to do that. So let's go ahead and get our images taped onto the cup. I'm not sure why it's beeping like that. Okay, so this is how I'm going to tape my cup. I tape it right down the center, and then I'm also going to just make sure I tape it around the rim. I wasn't doing that when I first got it because I was getting a little careless because my first few turned out really good with seriously not even taping it very much. And then I had a couple that were kind of ghosting a little bit and not getting enough pressure in certain areas. So just because I don't want to waste a bunch of cups, I'm going to make sure that I am taping it and pulling it tight still, but you don't have to do anything else other than taping it onto the cup. So now that it is heated up, it says it's 355 and then it's set to 70 seconds over here. We are going to go ahead and put our first cup in while we work on taping the other ones. It started beeping, so that's how I know that it is heated up. Another thing, before turning it on, if this is your first time using it, make sure that you are adjusting it with these little levers over here. Make sure that you are adjusting those and putting your cups in before turning it on, and just making sure that you're getting your pressure and everything right. This is definitely something you want to play around with so that it's not too tight or so your cup's not burning and stuff like that. So we're going to push it in and then push it down. And we're going to let that go for 70 seconds and then we'll flip it over and do the other side. Another thing that I forgot to mention is make sure that you do have some heat gloves because the cups are super hot. So whether you're turning it or taking the mug or taking the cup completely out, just make sure that you have these gloves on hand. So we're going to go ahead and press these others and then we'll remove the paper on all of them and see how they turned out. Another thing that I want to mention is if you are having ghosting still with using this press, you just want to make sure that your press is tight enough. So you want it to be a little bit difficult to open it, not super hard or anything, but you don't want it to be too loose because if it is too loose, it's not applying enough pressure to the cup and that will cause ghosting in a lot of areas. And what I mean by ghosting is you'll see on a cup, you're just not getting the pressure. So it's like white in the areas or it's not the full color or things like that. So just make sure that you do play around with it a little bit. It does take some experimenting and you definitely want to make sure that if your colors are too dull, it could be that the temperature is too hot. This is the temperature and time that I found has worked best for me, but it could be different for you. All right, so now that all three tumblers are done, we're gonna go ahead and pull the paper off and see how they turned out. Another weird thing that will happen too sometimes is if you're pulling it off and the paper is like sticking and you have this weird like residue on the cup, it just means I think the pressure is a little bit too tight, but you can take your cup and just use like dish soap or whatever and scrub it and it will take that off. The tumblers that I'm using are UV tumblers, so they have a little bit of shimmer to them. Okay, so this is our first one. This one turned out really good. Then I'll show you the top because this is the area that a lot of people get ghosting at. And on the bottom. What I like about the tumbler press is it definitely helps put heat around that curve right there. So the image goes down a lot farther than I find that it does when you use the oven. So this one turned out really good. You really can't even see the seam at all, and there is no ghosting. And that was super easy. There was hardly any prep with that. With the convection oven, you have to do so many steps to try to make sure that you're not going to have any ghosting. But this one turned out great. Let's do the other two. It's a lot easier pulling the tape and the paper off when you don't have those gloves on. So you can wait for it to cool down if you want to. You don't have to peel the paper off when it's hot. Okay, here is the next one. These last two don't really have too much of a seam because it does just have a white background and some images kind of all over the place. So the main ones that you're gonna have issues with the ghosting and everything would be ones that are just full color or black or full black or things like that. So if you are a beginner, it might be good to start out with either tumblers that are just one picture on the front, not a full wrap, or ones that aren't a super dark color all the way around. So like these, the background's just white, so you're not gonna have too hard of a time trying to match up the seam and things like that. All right, and then here is the last one. All right guys, so that is it. As you can see, that was super easy. I highly recommend buying this press. Thank you so much, Heat Press Nation. I think that it'll make making tumblers a little bit more enjoyable. I really like making tumblers, but the process of it was just so long and a lot of the time I was messing things up. So I feel like the press is a big game changer. Even though you can do multiples in the oven, I still feel like the amount of time that you're saving by not having to do all the prep and things like that, I think it's definitely worth getting the press to do that. The press is linked below. Let me know your thoughts. Do you like to use the press or the oven? If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.